You know Another Love by Tom Odell? What if I told you that the chords behind that song are actually super simple, beginner level simple, and that with a few pro techniques, you can turn any basic chord progression into something that impressive. In this video, I'm going to strip the Another Love piano part back to the basics and analyse the rhythms, fills, passing chords, and other playing techniques that make it sound so good. Then I'll build it back up one step at a time so you can see how pro players create this type of sound without it becoming too overwhelming and hopefully taking some of the mystery out of this type of playing. And I'll also be applying those same techniques to a totally different chord progression, so you can see what effect they have and how you can apply them to your own playing. So that Another Love piano part is haunting and powerful, yet it's built from simple chords, which are the E minor, G major, back to the E minor, and then to the B minor. Pretty straightforward, right? Isn't it amazing how different this chord progression sounds without all the bells and whistles included? And like I said, we're going to be applying the techniques used to our own progression. So let's use this classic chord progression. A minor, F major, C major, and G major. Now let's start leveling it up. Tom avoids big jumps between chords using inversions. Instead of moving from root to root, he revoices chords to keep transitions smooth and connected, using the same notes in the chords but in a different order on the piano. So instead of playing an E minor in a root position, he inverts it by taking the bottom note up an octave, not once but twice, to make an E minor second inversion. He does the same with the G chord, plays the G major chord up here, then he goes back to the E minor second inversion, and then to the B minor. So let's do the same and add some inversions to our progression. So let's play an A minor second inversion to start. Then we can go to the F major by just bringing the thumb up. Then let's go up to the C major second inversion here. Then when we move to the G, we can just bring the top two down one step to the left. In Another Love, the left hand plays a first, fifth, and octave pattern, adding depth and power underneath. So in the basic version before, we were just playing the root note in the left hand, otherwise known as the first. So to add the fifth and octave, we'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the fifth, and then 6, 7, 8, or octave. So then if we do the same for the rest of the chords, you've got the G, back to the E minor, and then down to the B minor. Just a quick one for when you're doing this on your own. You can find a perfect fifth every time by moving up to the right by 7 half steps or semitones. So, starting note or root, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Bang on, a perfect fifth. And with the right hand, so let's do the same with ours. Whilst Tom is using lots of fills and frills in his playing, there is a clear rhythm being played in amongst it all. There's 4 beats in each bar, and the right-hand chords are playing on the second beat, the and after the third, and the and after the fourth. So with the left hand playing on the first beat, I'll add that rhythm back in the right hand, and I'll play it nice and slowly for you. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 So let's use that rhythm in the right-hand chords for our progression. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The left hand is also using a repeated rhythm, played on the 1, the and after the 2, and the 4. So if we use that in the left hand, you start on the 1, and there's 2 more hits in the left hand, but rather than playing the full first 5th octave, he just rocks up to the 5th and the octave on top. Like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. This rhythm is commonly used in pop and rock. For example, in All of Me by John Legend. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And when you put both those right hand and left hand rhythms together, you get this rhythmic back and forth between the hands, which creates a driving, upbeat energy. So together on the Another Love progression, slowly, you'd go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 if you play it faster, so if we apply both those left and right hand rhythms to our progression, it sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. This next technique really starts to transform the progression, making it sound more like the song you know. It's being used frequently throughout, and they're called pushed beats. They add urgency and make the song sound like it's spilling forwards. And here's how to play them. So the idea behind these pushed beats is that when you are coming to the next chord in the progression, for example, the E minor to the G major, you play the G major chord ahead of the first beat of its bar. So you're playing it on the and at the end of the previous bar. Like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then you hold it for the first beat of the next bar. So you're pushing that chord ahead from where it was. That's why it's called a pushed beat. So if we add that left hand back in, you'd go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and onto the next bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So again, we're going to the E minor chord next. So this E minor chord pushes onto the and of the previous bar. And then 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And on the B minor there ahead. And then onto the next bar. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So if we then apply this pushed beat technique to our progression, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 to the F, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 to the C, 1 and 2 and 3 and to the G, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and again. If you're enjoying this lesson and want to go further, then you may want to check out a Birds Piano Academy membership. There's a whole range of piano courses, all properly structured with step-by-step guided lessons, including the Ultimate Piano Chords course, where you'll learn all about chords and how you can use them to play impressive piano without needing to learn to read sheet music. I'll leave a link in the description below. Another technique that really makes the difference here are the use of passing chords. They add movement and energy to the progression. A passing chord is when you add in an extra chord between two others as a way of transitioning from one to the other. For example, in Another Love, he starts off on the E minor chord and he's going to the G major. But he uses the D major chord as a passing chord in between them. From the G chord, he's going to move back to the E minor chord, but he uses a C major full chord there before moving back to the E minor. On the third bar, he uses an E sus4 chord. So sus is short for suspended. So if you take an E minor chord, and if you play the fourth rather than the third, 1, 2, 3, 4, that would be an E sus4 chord. So you can change the order or invert these chords as well. So if you play the E sus4 inverted, you go like this. Then you go to the B minor. So when he gets to the last chord, the B minor, he uses the same idea and just takes the top of that chord there and moves up. And these passing chords are landing on the and after the 3 in each bar. Or you could think of them as being on the second chord hit of each bar. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So let's add some passing chords into our progression as well, putting them in the same place, replacing the second chord hit in each bar on the and after the third beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 a bit faster. This is really coming together now, isn't it? And Tom also adds little piano flourishes, simple fills that are really effective. And on the second bar, he uses a fill which is related to the passing chord. So if you remember, the passing chord with a C major to the E minor. So what he does, he uses a C sus2, which is also related to the G, because it could be a G sus4. But anyway, he uses that shape and he breaks it up. And then he goes up. So he's almost making the C major ahead of time there. He's going... That's part of a C major chord there, the C and E. So he goes like this. And into your passing chord. And into the E minor. And that's coming in on the and after the first beat in that second bar. Like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the full progression with that added in. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Let's use the same fill pattern, but on the F chord in the second bar in our progression. So the F chord is this, the F sus2 is this, and then let's break it up. Then move up to the A there, and that's the fill. And with the left hand, 1 and 2 and 3, and then onto the G chord, passing there, and up to the C. And the full progression with that fill added in. And finally, I use this technique all the time as well. It's subtle and sounds great, adding extra rhythm and nuance. I've called it a push bump because you're pushing ahead of the beat and it's almost like you're bumping yourself up to the next chord. I'll show you what I mean. So to start, you'd go 1 and 2 and then here, you're going to go into this full D chord there. So you're using the bottom of that chord and you play it and then you play the full chord like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and that's it. 1 and 2 and 3. It sounds great, doesn't it? And when you play it in the full progression, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So let's add a couple of those to our progression. Starting off the same. So here, we're going to move to the G passing chord. So we'll add the bottom of that as a push bump before we play it. Like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Yeah? Carry on. And let's add another one here. So we're going to go 1 and 2 and. So we're going to the C sus, so we'll push bump there. And then let's add another one here as well. So we're going to go to the E minor first, that passing chord there. So you're going to go 1 and 2 and push bump. Yeah? So all together, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Let's play it a couple of times through so you can see how all those techniques fit together. How great does that sound? Using all those techniques that Tom Odell uses in Another Love have completely transformed our basic chord progression into something that sounds pretty cool. Well, I think so, anyway. Do you think it's an improvement? Let me know in the comments below. There are a couple of other things that Tom does, mainly jumping up to some extra chords in the left hand. There. I've shown you the main techniques that I used. So I'm hoping that what might have first looked like an advanced and perhaps incomprehensible piano part, after being dissected, is just a collection of different patterns, rhythms, and other piano techniques applied to a simple chord progression. There's no doubt that it takes some skill to be able to write and play something like this, but hopefully I've cleared up some of the mystery behind what's being played. If you enjoyed this lesson, then check out this video, where you will learn 14 pro tips for next level piano chords.